Let's look more into yet another strange mystery that stems from the dark and foreboding history of Alaska's dark interior.
Alaska's Coast Guard just confirmed their version of Jaws is real. It's bigger than you imagine. What began as routine patrols in the Gulf of Alaska turned into something far harder to explain. Sonar readings, damaged vessels, and repeated encounters now point to a predator operating beyond anything officially recorded. The sighting that triggered everything. The incident began during an early patrol in the Gulf of Alaska, where a Coast Guard vessel was conducting routine surveillance near open water routes. This took place during a scheduled operation in 2023 with no unusual alerts or prior warnings. The objective was standard: monitor traffic, scan for anomalies, and maintain presence across remote sections of the coastline. Conditions were stable, and equipment readings showed no immediate concerns during the first phase of the patrol. The first sign of change came through radar detection. Operators identified a moving mass beneath the surface that did not match known patterns. At first, it was classified as possible debris or a submerged object drifting with current flow. That assumption held briefly, as similar readings can appear in deeper waters. However, the size of the return signal stood out. It exceeded typical readings recorded during previous patrols in the Gulf of Alaska, creating uncertainty about its origin. The situation shifted when the object changed direction. Instead of continuing along a passive path, it adjusted movement and began aligning with the vessel's position. This matters because submerged debris does not track or respond to movement above it. The change suggested active motion rather than environmental drift. The crew began visual confirmation procedures as the vessel maintained course, narrowing the gap between surface and object. Moments later, a dorsal shape became visible beneath the waterline. The outline was large, extending beyond the scale of known marine life recorded in the region. Observations made during the 2023 patrol confirmed that the size did not match any species documented in prior Coast Guard logs. The combination of radar tracking, directional movement, and visual confirmation established that the object was not debris or machinery, but a moving organism of unknown classification. The first close encounter. The vessel reduced speed as it approached waters near Kodiak Island, maintaining position while continuing observation during the same 2023 operation. The goal was to gather clearer sonar readings and confirm the nature of the object detected earlier in the Gulf of Alaska. As the ship slowed, the water around the hull began to change. Surface tension shifted in irregular patterns, creating disturbance that did not match typical wave movement. Sonar readings became more defined at this stage. The system returned a moving shape beneath the vessel, maintaining a steady position just outside direct visibility. The scale of the reading exceeded standard biological limits recorded in previous data. This matters because sonar systems are calibrated to detect size and density within expected ranges. The readings indicated something larger than any marine species logged in Coast Guard records. The disturbance intensified as the object moved in a circular pattern beneath the vessel. The motion was controlled and consistent, maintaining distance while remaining within proximity of the hull. This pattern suggested awareness of the vessel's position rather than random movement. The crew continued monitoring without direct engagement, focusing on tracking rather than interference. Crew reports documented the scale of the encounter clearly. Observations noted that the size of the organism exceeded anything previously recorded in the region near Kodiak Island. Statements recorded during the 2023 patrol described it as larger than any known marine life encountered in operational logs. The combination of sonar data, surface disturbance, and controlled movement confirmed that the vessel was tracking an organism outside known classification parameters. Why Alaska waters hide giants? The Gulf of Alaska is one of the deepest and least explored marine regions in the world, with large sections still unmapped even in 2023. This area contains deep trenches, sudden drop-offs, and underwater valleys that extend far beyond standard research zones. These conditions create limited visibility and restricted access, making consistent observation difficult. This matters because environments that remain unexplored often allow unknown species to exist without detection over long periods. The water temperature in this region plays a key role in biological development. Cold conditions slow metabolic rates, which can support larger body sizes in certain marine species over time. This has been observed in multiple deep-sea organisms studied since the 20th century. The slower energy use allows for sustained growth in environments where food is available. In areas like the Gulf of Alaska, this combination creates conditions where size limitations differ from warmer regions. Food availability adds another layer to this structure. The region supports a dense ecosystem that includes seals, whales, and salmon populations moving through migration routes each year. These species provide a stable food source for predators operating beneath the surface. This matters because a consistent food chain allows larger organisms to sustain themselves without needing to travel long distances. The presence of prey supports the possibility of larger predators remaining within defined zones. Scientific research also supports the idea that much of the deep ocean remains unknown. Estimates suggest that over 80% of deep-sea species have not yet been identified or classified. This statistic, supported by ongoing studies in 2023, reflects the limits of current exploration. The combination of depth, temperature, and ecosystem density creates conditions where large, unrecorded species could exist without regular detection. The predator that doesn't match any record. The organism observed near Kodiak Island during the 2023 patrol does not align with known marine species currently recorded in scientific databases. Size estimates alone place it beyond typical classifications, exceeding even large predatory fish such as the great white shark. Standard measurements for known species do not reach the scale suggested by sonar readings collected during the encounter. This difference immediately removes it from existing categories. Movement patterns also raised concern among the crew. Known shark behavior involves specific hunting patterns, including direct pursuit or ambush tactics. The observed movement beneath the vessel did not follow those patterns. Instead, it maintained controlled distance, circling with consistency and avoiding direct exposure. This matters because it indicates a level of awareness not typically associated with standard predatory behavior. Sonar data provided additional detail about structure. The readings suggested a longer and bulkier form than expected, with estimates ranging between 30 feet and 40 feet in length. This size exceeds most recorded marine predators. The density of the sonar return also indicated mass beyond what is typically associated with known species in the region. These measurements were recorded during the same Coast Guard patrol, reinforcing their consistency. Later analysis of reported bite patterns and interaction data suggested a radius larger than modern sharks can produce. This introduces two possible interpretations. The organism may represent an undiscovered species that has remained outside documented research, or it could belong to a lineage that predates current classifications. Both possibilities reflect the same conclusion. The observed predator does not fit within any existing biological record connected to Kodiak Island or surrounding waters. The fishing boat incident. The incident involving a commercial vessel was reported in the Gulf of Alaska during operations conducted in 2023 near active fishing zones. The crew initially experienced a sudden impact beneath the hull, strong enough to disrupt stability but not immediately disable the vessel. This kind of contact is unusual in open water, especially in areas regularly monitored by the Coast Guard. The impact did not resemble collision with debris or submerged rock, as it carried a controlled force rather than a static obstruction. As the crew attempted to stabilize the vessel, further damage became visible. Fishing nets deployed into the water were torn apart, not tangled or snagged. The tearing pattern showed direct force applied with precision rather than accidental entanglement. This matters because standard equipment damage in these conditions usually follows predictable patterns. Here, the damage suggested active interaction rather than environmental interference. Crew members reported visual confirmation of movement beneath the surface. A large tail-like structure was seen displacing water in a controlled motion, remaining partially concealed but clearly defined in size. One crew member described a visible opening resembling a mouth, estimated to be larger than the vessel's motor assembly. This description aligned with the scale reported in earlier Coast Guard patrol observations near Kodiak Island, reinforcing consistency across separate encounters. The incident was formally logged, but classified as an unverified marine hazard within records connected to the 2023 report. This classification placed the event outside confirmed biological identification, despite physical damage and multiple eyewitness accounts. The combination of structural damage, visual confirmation, and official logging suggests that the encounter was recognized but not fully categorized within existing marine records. The bite evidence that changed everything. Following multiple incidents reported across the Gulf of Alaska, damaged vessels were examined for physical patterns that could explain the encounters recorded in 2023. Investigators focused on structural damage found on reinforced hull sections, particularly areas showing curved indentations. These markings were not random. They followed a consistent arc, suggesting a bite pattern rather than mechanical impact. This matters because hull materials are designed to withstand pressure from environmental forces, not biological interaction. Measurements taken from these markings revealed spacing between indentations that exceeded known predator capabilities. The distance between pressure points did not align with species such as the great white shark, which has well-documented bite dimensions. Instead, the spacing suggested a jaw size significantly larger than modern marine predators. This removed the possibility of misidentification with known species currently recorded in scientific data. Further analysis focused on force distribution across the damaged areas. Marine specialists noted that the pressure required to create these indentations exceeded typical bite force observed in contemporary species. This indicates a level of strength not currently associated with existing marine predators. The findings suggested a combination of size and force that does not match modern biological records. Comparisons were then made with fossil data, particularly those linked to megalodon, an extinct species known for large-scale bite patterns. The similarities in curvature and spacing raised further questions about classification. While no direct evidence confirms the presence of such a species today, the structural match between observed damage and fossil records introduces a gap between known extinction timelines and current observations within the Gulf of Alaska. Sonar footage they didn't release publicly. During deep scan operations conducted in the Gulf of Alaska, sonar systems captured a full-body outline moving along the ocean floor during a classified 2023 patrol. The scan was not partial or fragmented. It showed a continuous form extending from head to tail with proportions far exceeding standard marine readings. This matters because sonar imaging is calibrated to detect mass and density accurately, leaving little room for misinterpretation at that scale. The recorded outline suggested a length well beyond known apex predators. Estimates place the figure significantly larger than species previously logged in the region, including those tracked near Kodiak Island. The shape appeared elongated and dense, maintaining a steady movement pattern along the seabed. Unlike typical marine life, which shifts direction frequently, this movement remained controlled and direct. That level of consistency pointed to awareness rather than instinctive motion. As tracking continued, the organism changed direction in a vertical ascent, moving downward into a deeper trench zone. This transition was captured clearly in sonar readings, showing rapid descent beyond standard tracking depth. This matters because such movement requires both strength and adaptation to extreme pressure conditions. The ability to shift between depth layers suggests a biological structure capable of handling rapid environmental changes. The footage itself was not released publicly. Internal classification reports linked to the Coast Guard cited public safety concerns as the reason for restriction. The decision to withhold full imaging data reflects the scale of what was recorded. The combination of size, movement, and depth transition placed the organism outside existing marine classifications, leading to its designation as restricted material within operational records connected to the 2023 scan. Why it's staying hidden. The environment of the Gulf of Alaska provides conditions that allow large organisms to remain undetected, even with modern tracking systems active in 2023. The depth of the region, combined with cold water temperatures, reduces visibility and limits consistent monitoring. These waters contain trench systems and drop-offs that extend beyond standard exploration zones, creating natural concealment areas. This matters because limited access directly affects the ability to confirm or classify what exists within these environments. Temperature plays a key role in this concealment. Cold water slows biological processes, allowing organisms to conserve energy while remaining inactive for extended periods. This supports survival in deep environments where movement is not constant. In regions near Kodiak Island, these conditions combine with depth to create stable habitats that require minimal exposure to surface-level activity. The result is a system where presence does not require visibility. Movement patterns further support this structure. Reports suggest that the organism transitions between deep trench zones and coastal feeding areas rather than remaining in one location. This type of movement reduces the likelihood of consistent detection. The behavior aligns with a pattern of limited exposure, where surface interaction occurs only when necessary. This matters because intermittent presence is harder to track than continuous activity. The rarity of sightings follows this pattern. Incidents recorded in the Gulf of Alaska remain isolated but consistent in description. Each report aligns in scale, movement, and environmental context. The combination of deep concealment, controlled movement, and minimal exposure explains why encounters are infrequent, yet similar in detail. The structure of these conditions allows the organism to remain largely outside observation while still interacting with surface-level activity when required. The bigger threat no one is talking about. Reports collected along the Alaskan coast during 2023 show a noticeable rise in unexplained vessel damage, particularly in areas connected to the Gulf of Alaska. These incidents are not isolated to one location or one type of vessel. Fishing boats, patrol units, and commercial ships have all reported structural impact without clear cause. This matters because damage patterns are consistent across different reports, suggesting a repeating source rather than random environmental events. At the same time, marine activity in the region has shifted. Recorded disappearances of animals, including seals and large fish populations, have increased beyond expected levels. These changes were noted in tracking data near Kodiak Island, where migration routes have shown irregular gaps. That distinction is important. When prey patterns change without environmental explanation, it often points toward a new or unaccounted predator influencing the ecosystem. This is where the structure begins to shift. If the sightings and damage reports are connected, the implication is not limited to a single organism. A single predator would create isolated patterns. Instead, the consistency across multiple locations suggests a broader presence. This matters because it introduces the possibility of a population rather than an anomaly. In response, monitoring efforts have increased under Coast Guard operations, but public communication remains limited. There is no direct confirmation, only adjusted patrol behavior and expanded tracking. The combination of increased activity, restricted information, and consistent incident reports indicates that the situation is being observed carefully without formal acknowledgement. What this means for the ocean and us. The observations recorded in the Gulf of Alaska during 2023 challenge long-standing assumptions about marine extinction and biological limits. Large prehistoric predators previously considered extinct are defined by fossil records with no modern confirmation. However, the size estimates and physical evidence collected near Kodiak Island suggest characteristics that do not align with current species classifications. This matters because it introduces a gap between scientific expectation and observed data. The deep ocean has always remained partially unexplored, but these findings push that boundary further. If an organism of this scale exists within current ecosystems, it indicates that apex species may still operate outside documented research. That distinction is important. It shifts the understanding of marine ecosystems from fully mapped to partially unknown, especially in regions with extreme depth and limited access. The impact extends beyond scientific theory. Shipping routes, fishing operations, and naval activity all rely on predictable environmental conditions. The presence of an unclassified predator introduces uncertainty into those systems. This matters because industries operating in the Gulf of Alaska depend on stable patterns, and any disruption affects both safety and economic structure. Scientific response has already begun to adjust. Researchers are revisiting assumptions about growth limits, survival conditions, and evolutionary timelines based on data collected in 2023. The focus is no longer only on what is known, but on what remains unobserved. The shift is not sudden, but it is clear. Current models may not fully account for what exists in deeper regions of the ocean. What was detected in the Gulf of Alaska isn't just unexplained, it's consistent. And if it's real, something massive is still moving beneath the surface.